Hello.
Welcome to November.
Yay. This is Historia the podcast.
I'm Jamie.
I'm Kylie.
And it is windy and cold.
It is. Like, the weather changed drastically since the last time we have spoken to you.
Yes, it took a 360. It is, or 180. God, I feel stupid right now.
Well, if it flipped all the way around, it'd be a 360, but because it's like opposite, I feel like it's a 180.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that. Anyway, we always like to talk about the weather here.
Because it's terrible.
And it's Colorado, and you never know what to expect.
Did you see that it snowed in like Estes Park and like Boulder and stuff like a couple days ago, and we got nothing?
Yeah.
I was like, what the heck? It was just cold.
Yeah. But anyway, we're not going to talk about the weather today. We're going to be talking about something so great. I think I know what you're doing because you told me.
No.
You changed it?
I did.
Okay. So
yeah.
Never mind.
So originally I was going to do the Berlin Wall because I find it very interesting and I think it would be fitting for everything that's going on with Russia right now.
So you're not doing that?
No. I decided when I started to do, I did like a brief kind of just run through of it, and I was like, I don't have enough time and there's so much to it. I'm like, this is like a month in itself.
That's fair.
So like maybe periodically throughout, I might just do like little research over time and just maybe we spend like a whole month on it. But like, I was just like, I want to do something for November because when the Berlin Wall fell, it was in November. But I decided to follow tradition to do something a little bit different.
Oh no, now I don't know what's going on.
Yes, it's pretty crazy.
Okay.
So, you ready to dive on in?
I think I am, yeah.
Yes, we did catch up off recording.
Right. we tried to keep our talking like without actually hitting record, and then we would hit record when we're done talking. So.
Oh yeah, because it would be at least like 20 minutes.
Last episode I had to edit literally 10 minutes of us talking.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
About Christmas.
Don't get me started.
But hey, we sound better this time.
I do. I still can't get rid of my cough.
Same. It's still there.
I hate coughing.
Yeah.
It is the grossest thing out of anything
but
for me.
I feel like we're definitely sounding better than last time when we're not going to cough every 5 seconds. So
yeah, and we don't sound as nasally.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
Alrighty. So let's get into this week's topic. So welcome back, everybody, to the month of November. And boy, do we have a lot in store for these next couple weeks that I'm discussing. And I'm sure the next couple weeks Kylie will be discussing.
Yeah, you're not expecting what I'm about to do. That's all I can say.
Now, I'm going to be discussing a very heavy topic this week. So discretion. There's a lot of violence, a lot of cruelty, a lot of torture. And it's very, very devastating. If you get triggered by anything emotional, do not listen to this.
So I can't listen? Just kidding.
No, this is a very heavy topic. And I have been just debating about doing this for a very long time. Because I didn't know how I would feel about doing it. And the research that I did was very emotional for me. Even though, like, I'm not like close to it, but it's just like being into history, like being a history buff and everything and like studying it. It's devastating.
Okay.
Anybody would get emotional about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like last year, we discussed some pretty heavy topics in the month of November. This included Columbus and Cortez.
Go listen to that. Gross.
Yes, go. It is the month of genocide this month.
It is. I'm just laughing because my topic is not
Oh,
genocide.
not? Oh, well, it's a good thing I'm doing it.
You're going to laugh when you find out what I'm doing.
Oh, God.
Okay, just keep talking.
So I wanted this year to be a little bit of tradition for
Okay.
keeping genocide on the table, or mass genocide. So
it's the most wonderful time of the year.
Yes.
Mass genocide. God.
So these next couple of weeks, I'm going to be discussing Nazi camps of World War II.
I had a feeling.
Yeah.
If you had me guess, I would have guessed that. Mm-hmm. Oh, I knew this topic would come up eventually.
Yes, and it is a very hard one.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the research. It's absolutely devastating. Next week is going to be worse.
I can't even watch Boy in the Striped Pajamas.
Yes, that is very sad.
I watched it once at 2 a.m. and I didn't sleep that night. I don't know. I couldn't sleep and then it made it worse.
We watched it, I think, in history class in high school. I know I did.
I feel like I was probably gone that day or something.
It was like a whole week of watching it.
I'll remember. Okay.
All right. So I know I am predictable of my first go-to of the Holocaust being Germany or just concentration camps. But you're probably thinking there were other ones in World War II other than Germany. I am aware of this. Trust me. Now, over time, like maybe next year or something, discuss other camps of World War II, like in Russia with the Gulags, because that was like mass murder too, which is, I don't know if you're aware of that. Like, like Stalin, holy shit.
Oh,
he killed a lot of people too in these camps. And then also there are the U.S. Work camps here, or the, what are they called? They're not called concentration camps. They're something else. But it's where they would put after Pearl Harbor, they put all of the Japanese, even American Japanese, people that were born in America, they would put them in these camps. Mm-hmm. So I would like to discuss those. There's actually one here in Colorado.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's down south. I would like to go to it, but I don't think there's much of it anymore.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, all of this would be too much to put in 2 weeks if I covered all of the camps that were in World War II, because there were a lot. But I just wanted to focus mostly on the Nazi camps this couple weeks because it's really bad. So I also want to share this week where I got my research from. I got it from the book Inferno, The World at War, 1935 to 1945 by Max Hastings. And I also got information from the Holocaust Encyclopedia website. That was all about like the Nazi camp systems and all of the camps. It went into so much detail. It is amazing. It's a great website. If you want to know more about Nazi camps, the systems, the camps in general, because I'm not going to be discussing all of them. That would be way too much. But I'm going to be discussing some of like really popular ones, the first ones, the system of it. But there's so much more that is hard to get in a couple weeks that I highly recommend you go to this website and do your research or just kind of find interest in it, because it is so helpful and it has videos, it has pictures of like survivors, and it's incredible. It's so like chilling that it's like you can't believe this is real, but it is. It's absolutely devastating. And this book that I have, oh my god, I used it in my World War II class that I took in college. It's freaking massive. We had to read all of this.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it's
how many
like,
pages?
It is, well, excluding all of the index because it takes up like everything. I believe of the book itself, there are 651 pages. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Crazy. It's super big. It has a little bit about the camps, but it has... I was going to
say, did you read all of that?
I skimmed it.
Oh, okay.
You're not going to read a full-ass book
well, that's
when you're
why
in
I
college.
Was like... Damn.
No, I skimmed a lot of them. Plus, there's certain chapters that we skipped and whatnot. But, yeah, when you have, like, 5 other classes and, like, 16 books to read, you're not going to read them. You're going to skim them and read them later.
It'd be like, read 3 chapters, and I'd be like, nah.
I will skim them.
Yeah, exactly. I'll look for the main points.
Yes. So that's where I got my information for the next couple weeks. Super helpful. So let's get on to this devastating topic. Now, if you're not aware of World War II or the Holocaust, oh my God. It was very brutal, though. Now, World War II, supposedly in most textbooks are said to have started in 1939 when Hitler invaded Poland. But it's not necessarily true. I'm not going to really go into it because Japan and China had like a whole thing going on like 2 years before. So that's what I considered the start of World War II was between those two people. But I'm not going to over explain it.
There's a lot to this topic.
There really is. It's crazy. But this whole plan that Hitler had for the Jewish citizens and those who go against the Nazi ideology started long before the war even started. So it didn't just start in 1939.
Right.
It had buildup. It wasn't just going to start where it was just his decision of like, let's go take this country over.
Well, yeah, that makes sense. It's not just like a choice you make one day.
Exactly. So it was after the First World War that when Germany was down on its luck, that Hitler came in, a failed artist and all, and promised a better future for Germany. So yeah, World War I want to discuss a little bit further. That was the Chemical War, the Great War, as some people would say. It was a very interesting war because it started to mix like old traditional war techniques and stuff. Like some still used horses and swords when fighting, while others used their artillery. Like, it's crazy. But Germany failed terribly. They were so freaking poor, and they had no support after World War I. They kind of just didn't know what to do. They were failed, and they needed someone to come in. Of course, after a major defeat and completely broke, being a charismatic man that he was, Hitler would eventually worm his way into German politics. If you do not believe me, I am telling you, Hitler was very charismatic. That is how he got to where he was. He didn't just like force his way into it. It took time. It took buildup. That's a topic in itself, is Hitler and his charismatic ways of becoming chancellor and creating the Reich. Like, it's crazy.
He's known as one of the most influential people of all time.
I would say so. Like, no matter how terrible he is influential because he convinced all of these people to completely destroy multiple groups of people.
Right.
And then to completely just brainwash them. It takes someone so charismatic to be able to do that. So you may say, oh, he's terrible. How could you say that? It's true.
I looked up the most influential people and he was in like the top 10. So
exactly.
We're just stating facts.
Yeah, it may not be like, he's not a great person, but like he's still influential for what he did.
I feel like everyone knows his name, which means, yeah. Anyway.
It is what it is. Now, I'm not going to try and make this all about Hitler because that is not what I'm going to be discussing. But to understand Nazi camps, you have to understand where that idea came from. It didn't just pop up. It took development. It took everything else. So by the end of the war in 1919, it was proven that Germany was not going to bring great victory because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to take control. They were trying to spread their empire in World War I, the Great War, but it didn't happen. They failed tremendously, and with a heavy loss, Germany was now broke and had degraded to nothing more than a joke to other Europeans. They're just like, really? You're going to do that? But Germany held strong to just being like, we're not going to subside to being nothing. Like, we have to get back to being great. So now that we jump into Adolf Hitler, he entered the German Workers' Party in 1919 because he was very passionate about there being reform for German politics and just like the whole system. Because, bro, imagine if he actually got accepted into artist school. Or like became an artist. Like,
that is crazy to think about.
Yeah. So like his artwork wasn't like terrible, but it wasn't that great. But it's just like, what if he actually was a better artist, like, and he became an artist, like,
wow, how
everything would have shifted.
That's so weird to think about.
Exactly. It's another what if.
I wonder if there would just be someone else who's like him.
Probably.
That would step up to the plate,
Would not be surprised.
Yeah.
So From there, Hitler would insert himself into politics and start to change the German political system entirely. Hitler would go on to persuade the name of the party to be changed to the Nationalist Socialist German Workers' Party, which we know as today as the Nazi Party. So as soon as he entered politics, like, because of how charismatic he is, he wormed his way into it. He was just like, oh, what if we did this? What if we did this? Like, we got to make ourselves stronger. We have to unite. We have to pick ourselves up. And he got all of this support from everybody. They were just like, wow, he has great ideas. Well, some of his like ideas and just being completely like a racist and just being completely anti-Semitic and everything that came with that. That's like a history of him himself, of how that got brought up. Mm-hmm. I'm not really familiar with like his hatred for it, but I'm sure with like Mein Kampf, which is his like huge, his like Bible of just like the rights and wrongs and everything. I'm sure there's so much to him. Whatever. So eventually his mindset would be produced in his work Mein Kampf in 1925 that really told people what he believed in. So everything of just how the structure of Germany should change, their political system and everything. Now, a lot of this would include anti-Semitism, anti-capitalism, anti-communism, anything that made a person unique or separate. Mm-hmm. To do pretty much anything that was different from like what was like really told, of just everybody has to be blonde hair, blue eyes, right, perfect, pale white skin, meh, 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 meh. Basic shit. Now, today it's hard for many of us to understand how anyone could have persuaded such a destructive man, but it happened. He got so many supports. If you watch videos of him, there are freaking people fangirling over this guy. And he knew it.
Yeah.
He was completely aware that he had wrapped everybody around his finger. And he was like, I can use this to my favor. I can literally convince all of these stupid people to believe what I believe in. And I think I can actually get done what I want to get done to make this place better, to make all of those who have wronged me pay. Mm-hmm. So he was taking his pettiness out of all of this, and he completely convinced a bunch of people to agree with him. It's crazy. So this also made racist people of the world, or anti-Semitic people, all the people who disagreed with anyone different from them, to feel comfort at the time. They were just like, oh my God, you want to get rid of these people? Oh, they're disgusting. They rip me off. Like with Jewish people, they always had this belief that they were always like, so like, because a lot of them were like bankers and stuff that like that. They were like, oh, they're ripping me off, da da da. Like I hate them. And he made them feel comfortable about it. To be like, I agree with you. We should get rid of them. We don't need them. We need purity in this world, especially for our country.
Yeah.
And people were just like, hell yeah, especially with being Christian too. That was his one thing. He was like, we do not need other religions coming in, other different people that have different beliefs to worm their way in. We need something different. We need to keep it pure Christianity. We don't need anything else. And people were just, all the Christians and stuff were like, hell yes, that's what we need. They weren't even really against like Catholics and stuff, because they had a different way of praising God and stuff like that.
Yeah.
By January 30th of 1933, Hitler would be appointed as the new Chancellor of Germany.
Yikes.
And his work was ready to unfold and bring Germany back to its rising power. Now, with a brief overview of Hitler rising to power in Germany out of the way, we are going to discuss Hitler's idea on the Nazi camp system. Yay!
This is where it gets intense.
Yes, this is definitely more of like a build-up episode of just pretty much how he came to the idea, how he appointed other people.
Next week is the emotional.
Yes, next week is definitely the sad one.
That's great.
This is also sad, but this is build-up. So before diving into the popular camps, Anne Frank, I'm not really going to discuss Anne Frank, but just
love her. We'll cover her one day for sure. Love her.
She didn't actually, I thought she always ended up in Auschwitz, but she didn't. She was in a different camp.
I want to go to the Anne Frank house so bad. I think it'd be so cool to see.
Yeah. It's so sad. So, but there's so much more to know about the camps and the many different camps that there were. There's more than just a concentration camp.
Right.
It was more that the terms we hear, such as concentration camps or even death camps, I don't think a lot of people know death camps. I think it's mostly concentration camps that people are aware of.
Yeah, it's usually what you hear.
Yeah. Each camp would all have their names, but they also had a purpose. Now, these purposes throughout the war would change. So they could start at as like one type of camp. But through the next like couple years or so, they kind of morphed into multiple camps. And then I'll kind of talk about sub camps, which is like it's very interesting. So we all think of like concentration camps as like all the camps that people went into, all the gas chambers and stuff. But a concentration camp is actually the overall detention of enemies of the Reich. So it's like an overall thing. But there's like concentration camp is the overall, but there's actually specific words that go to these camps. So a Nazi party would go on to create many different types of concentration camps that all started in 1933, like right after Hitler's appointing. So as soon as he was like appointed as chancellor, he was like, okay, let's get started. We need to get all of these people who didn't believe in us out of the way. And so they came up with like a system of how they could do so. Now, the only similarity in these camps were how they were structured and laid out. Now, their layouts were pretty similar in the spaces being small and cramped with dozens of people sleeping in one room and kind of like the layout of it. But each one kind of had like their own, like, I guess, unique or different qualities to them that they kind of build on throughout. There was also, I'm going to talk about this mostly this week. I didn't really edit my notes, but there were definitely like the layout and structure of them. They got from one camp that the first camp actually I'm going to discuss next week. But pretty much there were always going to be a large camp that would have like the central main area of it. And then there would be like sub camps that would have all of the different smaller like purpose camps to them that I'll discuss. So due to there being so many people and not enough space, there were not enough barracks in the area. So there were, you know what, cut this. I don't know.
You're good.
Yeah, I completely mixed up my notes. I kind of just kept writing everything.
That's fair.
Okay, so I'm going to go into the staffing structure of the camps first because I don't believe I discussed this next week just because I'm going so much into the camps and just the individual people. So I'm going to talk about this week of the staffing structures that would go into the building or like the camps themselves. Now there were commandants headquarters where there would be a commandant and his staff would stay. So these are like the head guys that would be in charge of the camp itself. So they would be the ones that would tell guards kind of like what to do, keep charge, report back to the main like headquarter, like the Reich himself when it came to like certain things. They were like the big people in charge. So there was also a protective detention office run by security that would keep in charge of the records of all prisoners' arrivals, discharges, and also the torture and death on such prisoner. So they had a whole office that kept records of this. And it's interesting that like they kept record of it. I'm like, you're killing all of these mass groups of people, but why are you keeping record? But then I thought about it and I was like, because they're freaking assholes and they want to show like how many they have taken out of each individual group.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
Yeah. And I'm just like, that's so messed up to be like, oh, well, today we caught and killed like 50 Russian prisoner of war.
Yeah, like today we set a new record. It's like, Jesus.
It's like, yeah, you want to be like organized about it, but my God, that's a terrible way to be. But I mean, like, sadly, it helps us to know like an estimated number.
Yeah.
Of how many people died because they had those records.
That's true.
And I'm sure some of them tried to burn them too, of just like, oh, we didn't kill these people. It's like,
oh yeah,
you did.
I'm surprised that we still have that evidence. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, because they started, once the Allies were pushing in, they were burning anything that they could. So I was just like, ugh. So there was also the commander of the camp, administrator on supply, and an SS physician who was probably of no use for the prisoners except for the guards. I'm guessing. I'm like, there's a physician. There would be doctors there that I'll discuss next week, but they were kind of like useless because they were not that kind of doctor. They were experimental doctors. Eesh. It's so sad.
That is sad.
Now, all camps had this type of setup, but there was a difference between each camp that they were designed to be. What I mean by this is that what type of camps all the innocent people were being sent to. There were 4 different types of camp that the people that were captured would be sent to. The first one are the forced labor camps. So, not the first one. Overall, I'm going to explain all of them. So there was a forced labor camps, the prisoner of war camps, transit camps, and killing centers, also known as death camps. You might think that with the forced labor camp might be a little bit better, but it was not. It was just as terrible, and they all kind of turned into one big killing party. So they still would be murdered in the camp, and if they were no longer useful, they would also be killed. So forced labor camps were not any better. So forced labor camps would begin around 1934 when those who spoke out against the regime, so political radicals and stuff like that, those mostly being politicians or anybody who went against them, so starting to pretty much like anybody trying to protest, like Hitler and his idea and stuff like that, they would be put into these camps. In these particular camps, the Nazi regime would force those captured to work on construction projects. These construction projects were building more camps. Yeah. So these projects would eventually turn into all the camps that would be built around Germany and all the other countries they put camps into. Concentration camps weren't just in Germany. They were everywhere around Europe, believe it or not. Who was in charge of all these camps since Hitler had all of these other work things going on, especially a war brewing, especially with such growing war and expanding his empire. He needed a side man. He needed someone to keep an eye on all of this, be in charge of it. The one who would be in charge of the camps would be Hitler's right-hand man and SS leader Heinrich Himmler. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
No, never.
Yeah, he's a douchebag.
So there's Himmler and Hitler?
Yes.
Wow. Himmler and Hitler.
I think Himmler killed himself at the end of the war. I think he shot himself and his family.
Oh. How come I've never heard of this guy?
He's so fucked up. It's just because because you think of Hitler doing everything, and I'm like, I don't think you realize that there were so many other people in charge that was the big thing after the war. You had all these SS leaders that were like right under Hitler flee to like Argentina.
Yeah.
To South America. And I think Himmler, though, he was so devoted to the Reich and to Hitler that I believe he killed himself.
Okay.
So, plus he didn't want to get captured because he knew that it was not going to end well for him.
Yeah.
Because they were going to beat the shit out of him to get answers. And he wasn't going to. He was like, I'm not going to answer.
That's fair.
So, I'm not really sure. I kind of want to do one on him. But this guy's such an asshole. He doesn't deserve it.
I can't get over that they almost have the same name.
Yeah, I know, right? So he would formalize the camps and centralize the establishment of all of them. But Himmler also needed someone to be the inspector of all camps. He couldn't be there at all time. He needed someone. So Hitler needed someone, and then Himmler needed someone. There's many of them. And this was appointed by Himmler himself to SS Lieutenant General Theodor Eicke. Eicke would go on to be the commandant of the first concentration camp. He would also just like randomly stop at like a bunch of camps and stuff like that and be like, is everything up to code for their ideas? And everything, like nothing shady going on to like, oh, are the prisoners like going to do like an uprising or something like that? Mm-hmm. Even though they didn't have the energy to do it. But he was the one who kind of just went around because I guess Himmler was too busy himself. But then again, he was like Hitler's right-hand man. So when Hitler was like, go get me a coffee, Himmler was like, oh, what kind? So along with forced labor camps, the brutality of those in the camps only got worse when the war broke out. And the Germans were a target from the Allies. Now, instead of the construction that they would put these prisoners through and started to put them through, were more dangerous tasks. So other than farming and some labor camps, others got the shit end of the stick and were forced to mine coal mines, stone quarries, and other material mines. It was really bad to the point where, like, if you ever think of, like, coal mines and stuff like that, like, you get black lung, and that can cause you to die. Like, you could, these mines could easily collapse.
Yeah.
And you could have died from that. Like, working in the mine was, like, one of the worst, like, forced labors to be able to do. Like, other ones would probably have to, like, clean all of, like, the prisoner uniforms and stuff like that. Like, or building other camps. Like, there were so many different, like, and that's where, like, a lot of sub camps come in, is that you could be, like, in like a death camp or be like in a prisoner of war camp, but there's always like sub camps within them of like particular like forced labor jobs that you had to do. Mm-hmm. So these would be like sub camps, and that's why there's so many like concentration camps, because that's including all the ghettos that people would live in and all of the sub camps.
Gotcha.
So, because I don't think later on I really explained it, and I just wanted to explain it now of like what's the difference between like the main concentration camp of like a work camp and sub camps.
Yeah.
So
okay.
That's what it is.
Good clarification.
Yes. So with the health of prisoners, they were not even, the health wasn't even considered when they were putting them into work. If you were like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so sore, I can't work today, they're like, the fuck you mean? Get back to work. Mm-hmm. Like, your health did not matter. Yeah. In these camps, the victims were barely fed, had only a single jumpsuit that they were provided with their numbers, barely any rest to those who were even the most healthy. Like, no one got any sleep, and had a lack of equipment to do their job, but still were expected to perform. So it's like, oh, you need to plant stuff, use your hands. We're not giving you a shovel or anything. Yeah, it was really bad. And that's why, like, you see so many of them, like, they were starving to death. Like, you may be put into a work camp, but it's terrible. I think it's worse because you were slowly dying.
Yeah.
And doing jobs for them. Instead of just I would rather just be like, kill me now.
Oh, for sure. I'd rather die.
Yeah.
That's wild.
I'd be like, I am not working for you, and slowly killing myself because of it.
Right. Because then your health is not going to like be able to recover from that.
No. And some people couldn't.
Yeah.
Even though like at the end of the war and they were like liberated, some people still ended up dying because they were starving for so long.
Right. And you're mentally like probably going crazy, and you know, there's just a lot to it.
Yeah. Ugh. It's so sad. It was hell, pretty much. And many of the population that would go into these camps would not survive, even with forced labor camps. So the next type of camp that we will be discussing are prisoner of war camps. These camps would, of course, house the prisoners from any allies, the Soviets, and the Polish that they would capture in, I guess, just walking around or during some battles and stuff. So not great. In these camps, they were much like forced labor camps, where the prisoners would be forced into work. If they were not forced into work by a random chosen number, The other prisoner of wars would either be shot execution style or gassed, depending on where they were located. So with choosing them, literally a lot of times they will choose randomly by healthiest to unhealthiest. Most of these camps would be just males.
Yeah.
They had their own female camps, but I'll discuss that next week of how they integrated them. But pretty much with prisoner of wars, especially, man, they hated Russia to like a new level because they were communists. Like, they hated us, like the U.S. with a passion, but like with Soviets, they freaking killed them just straight. Like, sometimes there would be like 100 or 50 of them, and they would just kill them.
Ugh.
Execution style. It was terrible. Because originally, like, Hitler and Stalin had like an agreement before the war started that they would be allies with one another. But then Hitler, being the freaking dumbass that he is, decided to completely disregard any peace that they had with one another and just started killing their soldiers. And Stalin was like, what are you doing? Hitler's like, fuck you, dude. And so like anytime they would like fight with one another, that would be a great topic, is just the Soviets with Germany. It is very intriguing to know that with the Red Army, oh my God. Because they had a lot of people died in Russia too, which I want to maybe discuss next year. So,
cool.
Yeah.
We have a lot to look forward to.
Yes. With these prisoner of war camps, not a lot of them survived for very long. And the prisoner of war camps were like so consistent because of just how many battles were going on. So these were established a little bit like further around like 1939, 1940. And I believe I'll cover one next week. I don't think I will, but they pretty much just like showed up and then killed them at that point. Like sometimes I'll keep them around, but not really. So a camp that would make the Jewish people feel as if they were in limbo or afraid was the next camp that we're going to be talking about. We're in transit camps. So in these camps, it is pretty much what it sounds like. Here, the Jewish prisoners or any of the other groups, they would be put into these camps momentarily, and then they would separate all of them and put them into like different train cars and stuff like that. So that's where families got separated. So I was reading some people's like stories of how they were put into these transit camps.
Yeah.
With their mother, their father, their like 3 siblings, their grandma, and all of them were separated. And it took like 15 years for at least like 2 of them to get like back together, or for them to like realize that their family members had died. So it's like they never really knew. You were like completely separated. Like they would just be grabbing like all the women and children to one section, all the men to like push them to like the other section. So these transit camps were like separating everybody.
Yeah.
You weren't going to stay in the place where your parents were.
Right.
It was very, very rare that was going to happen.
That's so sad.
Yeah. It's really sad because like when you're a kid, you have no idea what's going on. You're just like, is this going to be okay? And the guards were like, nah, get in this train.
Don't ask questions.
Yes. So pretty much with this, with the transit camps, a lot of them would either go straight to the death camps, or they would go to like a forced labor camp, depending on like, I guess like your strength and stuff like that, like how it's going. And even if you make it to like a forced labor camp, they could still decide to kill you, like right on like site. It's like you had no idea what you were walking into. It was pretty much like luck and just trying to worm your way from like not being chosen. So death camps are also known as killing centers, and were one of the scariest camps to go into. Because going into these camps, you knew that you were not coming out alive. Even if you were there for months on end, you knew at some point your number was going to be chosen. Yeah. the whole objective of the kill center camps were to accomplish mass murder. That was their goal. That's what they wanted, because they couldn't put all of these like gas chambers and stuff like that or euthanasia centers in all of the camps. They didn't have the funding, or they just didn't have enough people qualified to be able to do it. So it was pretty much just a few certain places that were made for killing centers and stuff where they would take the people, and that they didn't really have like they didn't choose people specifically. It was completely at random of just like, these people are weak, let's get rid of them first. Or it's just like certain ones, they would just randomly grab them and just throw them in. It was just, yeah, a lot of times it was at random, but they kind of decided, depending if you're strong enough, to be put into forced labor. The Nazi regime that believed that to solve the solution of removing the Jewish people and all others that they decided, which I'll get into all the ones next week who they decided to kill. They believed that removing the solution was that the kill centers were the only way. Like, it was easier for them. They weren't wasting artillery like bullets and stuff like that on them. They're like, we have to think of another way to get rid of them. And that's where they come up with the gas chambers. So the first kill center would open in 1941. So if you truly think about camps and the construction of them, they had been going on before the war even started. Mm-hmm. Granted, they weren't like necessarily as brutal as they started, or as they were when the war started. They still had these camps structured and developed, and some people didn't even know. Like, it started in 1933, 1934, and they had the freaking Olympics in 1936 in Germany.
Oh my God.
And nobody, like anybody from the outside, didn't know about it.
Holy shit.
They kept it so hush-hush. People were just like, I don't know. Like, even in the villages near these camps, didn't want any acknowledgement of it. They were just like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be a part of it.
Wow.
So concentration camps were Hitler's solution of removing anybody who went against his ideologies. And for a while, his goal was looking like it was going to happen. So that's the end of this week's episode.
Oh,
yeah.
I'm already emotional.
It is. It's definitely a lot, and there's so much to it. But that is the foundation in the camp systems of just how many camps that they, how many like different types of camps, but overall they all became just one big one at that point of just, they did everything there.
Well, stay tuned for next week then, because we are in it.
Yes, we are.
Oh, all right.
Where can you find us?
So you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at Historia the Podcast. You can also email us at historiathepodcast@gmail.com. Our TikTok has been popping recently, so
really,
our last video did pretty good.
Hey.
The one that we made at my Halloween party.
Dude, I was so freaking drunk. I don't even know, because I don't have TikTok, so I don't know what's going on.
So if you're curious what we're talking about, go to TikTok and find out.
I'm dressed as Cleopatra.
I'm dressed as mustard. Like the condiment. All right. Well,
we'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Bye.